Hello, everyone. Welcome to video 6 of module 4. We're talking chapter 11. We've already discussed some losses. In this video, we're going to have a short discussion talking about how to best order those losses to get the optimum outcome for our taxes. So to get this started. So there is some direction in the Tax Act into the order in which certain deductions should take place. The good thing about this is the order that we're somewhat required to take is kind of the order we would likely opt to take when given the option. If we were computing our taxable income, the first thing we would want to do is to take those certain deductions from our income that we can't carry, that either we use them now or we're lost. So when we have the Tax Act, Section 110 and 110.2, the stock options and deductions for retroactive lump sums, we would want to take those first because those are treatments that only occur in the current year. The stock option deduction only happens when we're recognizing the employment income. So if for whatever reason we don't optimize that deduction, we don't get to carry it with us. So if given the option, we would want to use that first. Um, the other deductions we would take when computing income, way back in chapter 1, when we were including our positive income amounts, our net capital gains, and then we had those subdivision C deductions like RSP, childcare costs. We would also want to take those first. Now, the good thing is those are computed in net income. So those are computed in net income. Then we come to this section where we're deducting for taxable income, and we would want to start off with our stock options and retroactive lump sums. Then we get into our loss carryovers. Now, the benefit of this, the good thing about this section of the Tax Act is there's not a lot of requirements set for how we apply loss carryovers. So we get to choose which ones we want to use first. The only restriction or the only rule that we really have in place for loss carryovers is we have to use the oldest loss carriers first. So stuff such as the non-capital loss that can only exist for 20 years, we wouldn't use the most recent losses. We would use the oldest losses. We would want to use them up before they expired. So even though, yes, that is a restriction, it's not too arduous of a restriction because we would generally want to use our oldest losses first anyway. So with that in mind, we can pick which losses to apply. So the losses have various qualities. For example, they're streamed like net capital and non-streamed like non-capital losses. So net capital losses can only be used in a year where we have capital gains, but non-capital losses can be used against any type of income. So if we have a year where we have some taxable capital gains, we would opt to use that net capital loss carryover first because it's restricted, it's streamed. Since that's the only time we can use it, we would likely want to use it up while we have the opportunity. So so if we have net capital losses, we would generally want to use those before our non-capital. Once we've applied our loss carryovers, then we can claim the capital gains deduction. Now, the capital gains deduction comes into play only if we have capital gains related to those qualified small business corporations. So if we don't have those, then we don't need to worry about this deduction. If we do have that kind of gain, that might put us in a somewhat of a pickle because we have to decide whether or not to use our loss carryovers first. If we have those qualified small business, we would likely want to choose to use the capital gains first, that capital gains deduction. So we would probably opt to pass on using the net capital losses for this current year. And then we have the northern residence deduction. So note, no ordering rule for different loss categories, but within a particular loss category, make sure we're always using those oldest losses first. So I've already kind of identified these, but we'll go into them. Sorry. Points to consider when ordering your losses. Consider the time limits for loss carryovers. Some losses, like net capital losses, they hold on forever. They are indefinite. They stay until the person passes away. But those non-capital losses have to be used within 20 years. If we have losses from um, if we have losses from those allowable business investment losses, we can use those for 10 years and then they convert to net capital losses. So if we have losses of various types, we want to be aware of how old they are so that we're using the correct ones before they expire. Because if they expire, then we're out. We're out of luck. Capital gains deductions best claimed when taxable capital gains from a qualified farm property and qualified small business corporation shares, rather than using net capital losses or non-capital losses to reduce taxable income. The capital gains deduction is huge. It can protect us from $1 million of income, but it can only be used in a very specific situation. So when that situation applies, let's use the capital gains deduction. We can save the losses for another year. If the losses are streamed, you want to use those restricted stream types first, if that type of income is available. And we want to leave enough taxable income to fully offset non-refundable tax credits. So if I have $100,000 of income and I have 200,000 of non-capital losses, I don't necessarily want to use $100,000 to get rid of all of my income. I'm going to have the basic personal amount. Maybe I have some medical expenses, maybe age, maybe pension. Those credits are already protecting me from a certain amount of taxes. So if I use too much of those loss carryovers, now I'm no longer getting the benefit from those non-refundable credits and they're lost. So we will often calculate how much is our tax expectation now, how much of our losses need to be used to get that income or that taxes payable to zero, not necessarily income to zero. We don't mind if our income's above zero, but we don't want to pay the taxes if we don't have to. So we can try to use those non-refundable credits and our losses to get the payable to zero. Once we've accomplished that, we don't want to use anything extra. We want to use those credits to the most beneficial way. So, one second. There we go. So for exercise 1119, we have some ordering of losses. At the beginning of 2024, Alan Barter had the following loss carryover balances. He had, from 2018, there's a net capital loss of $20,000. This was earned on a loss of 40,000. 2021 restricted farm loss was 8,000, and 2023 non-capital losses was $36,000. Now, in this year, he had the following income. He had some taxable capital gains, 9,000, some business income of 12, employment income was 56, and farm income was 3,500. So we have several types of income and we have a few types of losses. So when we look at our net capital losses, they can only be used if we have some taxable capital gains. This year, our taxable capital gains is 9,000 and we have 20,000 of losses. So we will opt to use as much losses that are needed this year to get to sort of deal with that taxable capital gain. So we'll likely use $9,000 of our net losses to apply those taxable capital gains. Our restricted farm loss can only be used against that farm income. So we'll use those losses next to get rid of that 3,500. And then once those two stream types are dealt with, then we can use the non-capital losses to apply to whatever is left. So that would likely look something like this. So the first thing we want to do is we want to calculate our net income. So between our employment, business, and farming, that combines to 71,500. Taxable capital gain is 9,000. So net income for tax purposes is 80,500. I have our three types of carry forwards down here. Restricted farm loss, it said we had 8,000 available, but our farm income sorry, farm income up here, 3,500, we don't need all of the 8,000. We only need 3,500 to get this income portion to zero. So we'll subtract 3,500 from our 8,000. That means we have 4,500 remaining, and that's restricted farm losses that will carry forward. We have other stream losses, the net capital losses. Available, we have 20,000, but we can only use losses up to those taxable capital gains. So we're limited to the $9,000 of taxable capital gains we earned this year. We'll apply 9,000 of losses. That will leave 11,000 remaining for a future period. So we've used some losses, we protected ourselves from some taxes, and we still had a portion remaining to move forward. Now combined, this is only about $12,500, and we have 80,500 to deal with. So the net effect of those amounts is that's 68,000. Yeah. So these combine to still say our income has $68,000 left. Our non-capital losses is $36,000. That's how much we're carrying forward from a previous year. So we have plenty of income to use up those non-capital losses as much as we can. So we'll subtract the full 36,000, and that will still leave us with $32,000 of taxable income. That's enough income that we will likely still be using all of our non-refundable credits. So this is a pretty good outcome. We had $80,000 of income, and at the end of the day, we're only paying taxes on 32,000 of it. So that's ordering of losses. Thank you for your time on that. If you have any questions, you can always email me. When we come back, we will move on to discussing the tax credits revised. So revisited. So in the next video, we're going to talk about transferring dividend income in order to be able to use up those dividend tax credits. Thank you. See you in the next video.